I love houseplants. Just look at my home, houseplants everywhere. There's just something about bringing in a bit of nature into your home that really livens the place up and makes you feel more relaxed and happier. If you're anything like me, then you find the idea of nurturing a living thing to thriving beauty a wonderful thing. I remember when we first moved into this house, and one of the first things I wanted to do was create an indoor plant oasis. It's taken a few years and a lot of trial and error, but I must say I'm pretty happy with my collection. So today's video is a beginner's guide on how to take care of houseplants. I'll share some of my experiences with my plants and the mistakes I've made and learned from along the way so that you can get off to a great start with your green buddies. You might be getting your first couple of plants for your home or having trouble with some plants that you already bought and you're not really sure why or where to begin. Well, my plant friend, this video is here to help so that you can have thriving plants in your home. One of the first things I did when I moved into this house was take stock of what I had to work with. What aspects were the rooms facing? Where was the brightest light coming into the house? Where were the darkest spots? Were there any spots that were particularly drafty? Armed with this information, I was able to make the right decisions about what to put where. So before you go off to the shop to get a plant, have a think about where you're going to put it first. Is it a bright spot? Is it shaded from the sun? Is it next to a window that gets opened often? Once you know this, you can go to your nursery and pick out a plant that is suitable for that space by checking what it wants on the tag. Too many times I bought a plant on impulse in the shop and then had no idea where to put it when I got home. I'm sure you've been in that boat too, right? This is the crucial part to remember. Houseplants are individual spirits and want different things. A monstera won't be happy living in the same spot as a cactus, for example. So check the tag, my plant friend. A pro move when you are at your local nursery is to not only check the tag but a few other things too. Seriously, this will make or break your love affair with your new hobby and save you a ton of heartache further down the road. You might get a funny look here or there, but gently pop the plant out of its pot and have a look at the roots. Are they all tied up with not much soil left hanging around? Is there anything black and mushy? If this is the case, then it's worth moving on to the next plant with healthy roots that aren't bound up. After that, it's always a great idea to check the foliage. Last year, I fell in love with a Ficus elastica in my local IKEA. I was trotting off to the checkout, which is a good 5-mile walk by the way, before I remembered that I hadn't checked the leaves or stems. Once I did, I was horrified to discover tiny webbing on the underside of some of the leaves. Insects! I was gutted because I'd fallen in love with the plant, but I just didn't want to be dealing with a bug problem before I'd even begun. I checked all the other ficuses and they all had the same problem. Once one plant has an insect problem, it tends to spread to its near neighbours. It's safe to say I dodged a bullet. Once you've found the plant of your dreams and you're happy it's bug free, a thing I like to do is buy an outer pot while I'm still at the store. We want our new plant to look beautiful, right? An important part of that is finding the right outer pot, and you can make sure you get one that fits snugly there and then in the store. You've got your plant home now, and one of the first things you'll want to do is make sure he lives in a plastic pot with drainage holes. I remember the first plant I ever bought, a peace lily, and looking back it was not a happy bunny. The reason was because he was living in a porcelain pot without drainage holes. This is crucial for beginners with not much experience when it comes to watering plants. Without holes in the bottom of the pot, excess water can't escape, and that is terrible for root health. My peace lily was droopy with yellowing leaves, all because the soil was oversaturated with water. I don't really know how he survived for so long, to be honest. But he's still with me to this day, and thankfully he's gotten over the trauma. Look, he's even flowering, bless him. Now, not all plastic pots are equal. Some come with a raised centre, so there is a trench around the perimeter for water to pool. I'm not really sure what these are for, but you want one with a flat bottom and holes so that the excess water can escape. Simples. So I mentioned my peace lily and the woe of seeing him with yellowing leaves, and honestly I just wish I had a simple guide to refer to back then to know what the problem was and what to do about it. Well, to solve this problem for budding plant beginners just like me, I've created a free plant problems troubleshooting handbook that lists all the common problems you'll face and how to deal with them in a super user-friendly handbook that you can download for free by following the link in the description or the QR code on the screen now. Check it out, something you can have on your phone for when something untoward comes up. Now you might be rushing off to repot your plant as soon as you get it home thinking this is what it urgently needs, but most of the time it's not. It can actually harm your new green buddy. I always recommend just leaving your plant to settle in its new home for a couple of months before we do anything. Your plant will be fine for a couple of months and they tend to get a bit homesick and grumpy with the change of environment, so it's best to leave them be. After that, if you feel we could do with an upsizing, then do so into chunky soil mix. Chunky, well-draining soil is important for plants to allow the roots to breathe and not become saturated with water. I switched to pre-made soil mixes from Cybertanica last year to make it easy on myself and my plants, and they've got soil mixes designed specifically for most plant types, so I don't have to worry about making complicated batches myself. And you can nab yourself a 10% discount off their products by using my link in the description box to this video. The most common cause of houseplant death is over or underwatering, and this is something that flummoxed me when I was just starting out my houseplant journey. But it all became so much easier for me when I realised a couple of key things, and it's not rocket science, trust me. The first thing is that we should only water our plants when they need it. Sounds simple, I know, but it's something that lots of beginners don't seem to realise. They might assume that their plant needs a drink every week, so that's what they stick to without checking and hoping for the best. But this is where problems can rear their ugly head and leads many of us to needlessly chuck our plants out. Schedules are a plant's worst best friend or something. The simple thing to do is stick your finger 2 inches into the soil at least and feel for moisture. If it feels dry, then give it a drink. Wet, then leave it another week and try again. You can absolutely kill your plant with kindness. But what about quantity? We don't want to give it too much, right? This is where the second part of the equation comes in. If the plant is ready for a drink, then give it a good drink. Water it thoroughly so that all the soil is fully saturated. As long as the pot has holes, you can't overwater it. Giving it a little dribble will just lead to underwatering problems, and we really don't want that. So check the plant, water only when it's dry, but do so thoroughly. Drown that sucker. If you want to go pro or you don't trust your finger, then consider a moisture meter. The one I use is listed in my Amazon store, link below. Now, you'll see me watering my leafy pals from the top of the pot and the bottom in lots of my videos, but if you're a beginner, I recommend watering from the top. It's slightly easier to get it wrong with bottom watering. But if you are interested, I've got a video I'll link to in the top right corner all about bottom watering that you can check out after this. So we all know watering is important to stop our plant, dying from dehydration, but something that often gets missed is nutrients. Now, light and water are the two most important things about plant health and where the majority of our focus should be, but nutrients can really help our plant kick on. To be honest, nutrients was something that I ignored and it showed. Growth was slow and the colours weren't vibrant. I feel sorry for them looking back actually, but it's dead simple really, and the hardest part will be to actually remember to buy the fertilizer in the first place. But once you do, all that is required is to add some feed to your watering can every other watering to give them their nutrients and be on your merry way. But do check the dosage instructions on the bottle because it can vary between brands. I use Houseplant Focus from Growth Technology and my guys seem to be happy enough with it. So hopefully you did your due diligence and purchased a plant for a specific spot in your home that has the right light needs for that plant, because light is the biggest factor when it comes to how fast your little guy will grow. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. When a tag to a plant says that it enjoys low light, ignore it. It's a lie. No plant wants low light, that's the simple truth. No snake plant, no ZZ plant and no pothos. All plants thrive in bright light, so if you want the best plants, your goal should be to give them a good view of the sky. When they say a plant likes low light, it just means they can tolerate it, but it'll never thrive. If you've just looked over to your snake plant sat in the darkest corner of your room and had an epiphany, then all is not lost, my plant friend. Move him nearer to the window and watch his face beam with happiness. Not got the room? Then consider adding a grow light if you're keen to get the best plants on the block. I've got a bunch of Sansi grow lights all over my house and it really does make a difference. And yep, you've guessed it, I've got a link to a 15% discount you can check out down below. Pesky insects love to hide out underneath dead and decaying leaves, so make sure you pick up anything that has fallen onto the surface of the soil. It's not really the same as outdoor plants where leaf litter turns to mulch and composts down. For our indoor plants, it's just going to be a hideout for bugs, so get rid. It's also a great way for mold and mildew to kick in because of the lack of good air circulation around the plant's private parts. Air circulation is at a minimum indoors anyway, and we don't want to exacerbate the problem. The same goes for yellowing leaves that are on their way out. It's not vital to remove leaves that are just turning yellow, they can still photosynthesize after all, but once they get to this point, we should remove them. I mean, we don't want an ugly duckling making the place look untidy anyway, do we? I like to give my plants a prune on a regular basis to shape them to my liking and encourage bushier growth. I was always worried that I was hurting the plant, but I now know that this really isn't the case. The Sheffield Made Plants mantra is they will always grow back, and they will. And look, they can even take a hard pruning like this and new stems will follow with aplomb. Gotta love nature. So I've mentioned insects a few times already, but it is worth going over the main culprits and how you can identify and control them. A tip that I swear by is to simply check the leaves whenever you're doing your watering duties. Check the undersides of the leaves and where they meet the stems for things like fine webbing, specks, and tiny blobs of what looks like cotton. These are the signs of spider mites, thrips, and mealybugs, and if you suspect these things, it's best to remove the plant from its nearby neighbours and treat immediately. If you're unsure what to look for, then take a picture and compare to images online or even ask your local nursery. A decent approach to combat these evil beasts is to spray the plant with soapy water, wipe down, and repeat a few times a week. For stubborn bugs like mealybugs or scale, it's worth dabbing with rubbing alcohol to break the shell and kill the bug. For me though, those pesky little flies that you see flying around the surface of the soil are more of a problem, and they are a real pain to get rid of. They're the bane of my life, let me tell you. I tried all sorts and I was really pulling out my hair until I tried the ultimate solution. Don't worry, it's not that dramatic, but to find out what it is, click on the video on the screen now. And don't forget to download my free troubleshooting handbook. See you next time.